The alien fleet descended like a storm of blackened steel and searing fire, blotting out the skies with massive crafts that dwarfed Earth's largest skyscrapers. Their arrival wasn't marked by diplomacy or communication but by a devastating show of force. Cities crumbled under relentless bombardment. Entire continents were plunged into chaos as shimmering beams of light tore through defenses, leaving smoking craters where humanity's proudest achievements once stood. Their technology was beyond comprehension, their weapons precise and merciless. Automated drones swarmed through the air, targeting any sign of resistance. Massive walkers, their spindly legs crackling with alien energy, stomped through streets, obliterating everything in their path. The ground quaked under their might, and humanity's once thriving cities turned into a graveyard of ash and ruin. In the shadow of this destruction, humanity's attempts to fight back seemed pitiful. Fighter jets were swatted from the sky like flies, missiles detonated harmlessly against shimmering energy shields, and even the most advanced tanks were reduced to molten scrap by alien plasma fire. The world's armies, fractured and outmatched, fell one by one, their desperate counterattacks little more than futile gestures against an enemy that seemed invincible. Among the invaders, there was no fear of defeat. The alien commanders, their crystalline forms radiating an eerie luminescence, communicated in a language of sharp clicks and resonant hums. To them, Earth was just another conquest in a long line of subdued worlds. Their arrogance was palpable as they dismissed humanity's weapons as relics, crude tools unworthy of real concern. Primitive, one alien remarked, its voice a dissonant harmony, as it observed footage of tanks and rifles being deployed. Their kind has not evolved past the tools of war from their infancy. A pitiful species. While the aliens celebrated their inevitable victory, humanity clung to survival. In the charred remains of what was once a bustling metropolis, a small group of soldiers and civilians huddled together. They were scarred, exhausted, and outnumbered, but the flicker of defiance in their eyes hadn't been extinguished. Among them, Captain Daniels, a grizzled veteran with a face etched by years of war, took charge. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice firm despite the despair around him. Their refuge was a crumbling warehouse, barely standing amidst the ruins. Inside, engineers worked tirelessly to repair what few vehicles they had left, salvaging parts from the wreckage around them. Discussions of strategy were grim, centering on delaying tactics and survival rather than outright victory. "Every minute we hold them off is another minute someone out there can fight," Daniels insisted, though even he knew how thin their chances were. As the group scavenged for supplies, a young soldier named Private Collins stumbled upon something unusual. Hidden beneath years of dust and debris in an abandoned hangar was a shape that seemed out of place, a massive tank, its angular frame unmistakable despite its neglect. Wiping away the grime, Collins' eyes widened. "Captain, you've got to see this," he called out. Daniels approached, his eyes narrowing as he recognized the iconic silhouette of an M1 Abrams tank. The once pristine surface was now scarred and weathered, but its presence was imposing. "This old girl might still have some fight left in her," he muttered, running a hand over its battered hull. The soldiers gathered around, some skeptical, others hopeful. "That thing's a museum piece," one of them said, shaking his head. "What good is it against them?" Daniels straightened, his voice cutting through the doubt. "This isn't just a tank. It's a reminder of who we are. When the chips are down, we don't roll over. We fight. If we can get her running, we'll show those bastards what humans can do." Hope, fragile but tangible, began to spread among the group. The tank became a symbol of defiance, a glimmer of possibility in a world that seemed devoid of it. They didn't have much, but they had this, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like they had a chance. The tank stood there, cloaked in a thick layer of dust, its imposing silhouette rising like a sentinel from another era. Rust marred its once pristine armor, but the angular frame of the M1 Abrams was unmistakable. Its turret pointed toward the horizon, as if waiting patiently for a fight that hadn't yet arrived. The soldiers gathered around it, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "It's been sitting here since before I was born," Collins muttered, brushing dirt from the side with his sleeve. "Think it still works?" Daniels stepped forward, inspecting the tank with the practiced eye of someone who had seen his share of battle. "It's a beast," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "And beasts don't die easy." His fingers traced the faint emblem of a long-dissolved regiment etched into the metal. There was no guarantee the Abrams could be restored, but it was their best shot. The soldiers hauled open the hatch with a groan of protesting metal. Inside, the air was stale, and the controls were a mess of cobwebs and grime, but the core systems appeared intact. Daniels turned to their makeshift engineer, an older man named Harris, who had once worked on these tanks during his time in the service. "Think you can get her running?" Harris examined the interior, muttering under his breath as he inspected the control panels. "It's gonna take more than spit and duct tape, but I've worked miracles with less," he said, cracking a rare smile. What followed was a whirlwind of effort and improvisation. Harris and his team scavenged parts from wrecked vehicles, jury-rigging solutions where precision engineering would have been ideal. The soldiers worked in shifts, hauling fuel, repairing damaged tracks, and cleaning years of neglect from the tank's systems. Despite the grim surroundings, a quiet sense of determination took root. Every bolt tightened, every cable reconnected, felt like a small victory. When the Abrams finally roared to life, the sound was deafening. A deep, guttural growl echoed through the hangar, sending vibrations through the floor. The soldiers paused, staring in awe as the engine settled into a steady rhythm. The tank's once dim lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow on the faces of the gathered crew. "It's alive," Collins whispered, grinning despite himself. The Abrams was more than a machine. It was a piece of history, a relic of a time when humanity's ingenuity and grit had carried them through impossible odds. To see it operational again was like breathing life into a forgotten legend. Some of the older soldiers exchanged stories of its exploits, tales of how the Abrams had once been a symbol of dominance on the battlefield. "She's not just a tank," Daniels said, his voice rising above the hum of the engine. "She's a reminder of who we are. They think we're beaten, but this proves we've still got fight in us." His words struck a chord, lifting spirits that had been crushed under weeks of despair. Meanwhile, high above the city, the alien commanders observed the humans' efforts through shimmering monitors. To them, the activity seemed laughable. A crystalline officer tilted its angular head, studying the image of the Abrams as it rolled forward for the first time in decades. "They are clinging to relics of the past," it remarked, its voice a cold chime of disdain. "A pointless exercise. Their primitive machines cannot withstand our power." Another alien, broader and exuding authority, dismissed the concern with a wave of its segmented appendage. "Let them play with their toys. It will not change their fate." But the humans were not playing. As the Abrams emerged from the hangar, its tracks grinding against the rubble-strewn streets, the soldiers around it felt a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. The aliens might have underestimated their enemy, but the Abrams was ready to remind them of one immutable truth: humanity did not surrender easily. The plan was simple but daring. Using the wreckage of collapsed buildings, the soldiers set up a choke point along a narrow stretch of rubble-strewn road. It was a route frequently used by alien patrols, towering machines with shimmering energy shields and escort drones that hovered like specters. Captain Daniels, crouched behind a makeshift barricade, sketched out the plan on a piece of salvaged steel with a chunk of charcoal. "The Abrams will be our hammer," he explained, his voice low but commanding. "We'll lure them into the kill zone. Once they're in, we pin them down with small arms fire and let the tank do the heavy lifting. Timing is everything. They spot us too soon, we're done for." The soldiers nodded grimly, each assigned their role. Snipers climbed to higher vantage points, camouflaging themselves amid the ruins. Others planted improvised explosives, carefully concealed beneath layers of debris. The Abrams itself was positioned at the far end of the road, its hulking form hidden under a tarp and rubble to mask its presence. Harris and his team fine-tuned its systems, ensuring everything was in working order. Hours passed, tension mounting with every moment. The faint hum of alien engines announced their approach long before the patrol came into view. 3 walkers, their legs slicing through the air with mechanical precision, led the formation. drones flanked them, their scanning beams sweeping the area. The trap was sprung with surgical precision. As the lead walker stepped into the kill zone, an explosion rocked the road, sending shrapnel into the air. The drones darted erratically, their sensors overwhelmed by the sudden chaos. Sniper fire cracked through the silence, picking off the smaller targets with deadly accuracy. Then, with a deafening roar, the Abrams emerged from its hiding place. Its massive guns swiveled into position, and the first shell ripped through the energy shield of the nearest walker, shattering it in a spectacular burst of light. The walker staggered, its legs collapsing under the force of the blast, and toppled like a felled giant. The aliens hesitated, their arrogance giving way to confusion. Plasma fire lanced toward the Abrams, but the tank's armor shrugged off the assault, leaving only scorched paint. Another shot, and a second walker disintegrated in a cloud of fire and twisted metal. Inside the Abrams, Daniels barked orders. "Target the third! Keep moving, don't give them a clear shot!" Harris, manning the controls, guided the tank with surprising agility, using the rubble as cover. The Abrams fired again, its cannon roaring like thunder, and the last walker collapsed in a heap of smoldering wreckage. The alien patrol, now reduced to scattered drones, attempted to regroup. Their energy weapons spat furious bolts of plasma, but the Abrams maneuvered with uncanny precision, outflanking them at every turn. Its secondary machine guns tore through the remaining drones, each burst of fire a testament to human ingenuity and determination. But the fight wasn't over. From the sky, reinforcements arrived, sleek alien hovercraft armed with advanced weaponry. They opened fire, their energy beams carving deep gouges into the earth as the Abrams rolled forward. Daniel's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got company. Hold steady!" The alien counterattack was relentless. The hovercraft circled the tank, their pilots confident they could overwhelm it with superior speed and firepower. Yet, the Abrams proved an enigma. It anticipated their movements, turning its turret with startling accuracy. A well-placed shell struck the lead hovercraft, detonating it in midair. Shrapnel rained down as the others scattered, their formation broken. The ground team played their part, coordinating attacks to draw fire away from the tank. A group of soldiers detonated charges beneath one of the hovercrafts, sending it spiraling into a building. The Abrams capitalized on the chaos, firing shot after shot until the remaining alien forces were either destroyed or forced to retreat. When the dust settled, the battlefield was a graveyard of alien machinery. The Abrams stood at the center, its armor battered but intact, smoke curling from its barrel. Cheers erupted from the soldiers, a sound of unbridled triumph that echoed across the ruins. For the first time, the aliens realized they had underestimated their enemy. In their arrogance, they had dismissed the humans as primitive, incapable of true resistance. Now, faced with the undeniable proof of humanity's ingenuity and tenacity, their leaders began to question the certainty of their conquest. The Abrams, a relic by their standards, had shattered their invincibility and sparked a new chapter in the war. Word of the Abrams' victory spread like wildfire, carried by whispered conversations and hastily scribbled notes, passed between resistance groups. In a world overshadowed by despair, the tale of a single tank standing its ground against an invincible enemy became a beacon of hope. Resistance fighters who had once resigned themselves to survival now spoke of fighting back, of reclaiming what was theirs. "We heard about the tank," a grizzled fighter said, his voice filled with a new resolve as he addressed his ragtag unit. "If they can take down walkers and hovercrafts, we can too. It's time we reminded them who they're dealing with." Across ruined cities and hidden encampments, similar sentiments grew. The Abrams wasn't just a weapon anymore, it was a rallying cry, a symbol of humanity's refusal to bow. The aliens, however, were far from idle. Humiliated by their loss, they doubled down on their efforts to destroy the Abrams. Squadrons of advanced hunters were deployed, their weapons bristling with technology designed specifically to counter Earth's primitive machines. Alien engineers, crystalline forms glimmering under the glow of their forges, crafted new tactics and devices to neutralize this unexpected threat. But humanity, as always, adapted. Daniels and his team used the Abrams not just as a blunt instrument but as a strategic tool. They studied the alien movements, identifying weaknesses in their formations and exploiting them with precision. The tank became the heart of coordinated ambushes, drawing alien forces into traps where they were systematically dismantled by resistance fighters. Each engagement pushed the Abrams to its limits, yet it endured. Its battered armor bore the scars of countless battles, each dent and scorch mark a testament to its resilience. Soldiers who fought alongside it began to weave its story into their own, sharing tales of its victories around campfires and over crackling radios. "She's invincible," one fighter declared, pride evident in his voice. "Every time they think they've got her, she proves them wrong." The Abrams wasn't just a machine, it was a living legend. For resistance fighters scattered across the globe, it became a source of inspiration. Even those who had never seen it in action spoke of its defiance with awe. Resistance leaders began coordinating more ambitious offensives, emboldened by the knowledge that humanity could hold its own against the invaders. Within the alien command structure, frustration mounted. Holographic displays flickered as commanders reviewed the growing list of failures. "This machine is a relic," one crystalline officer hissed, its voice resonating with irritation. "It defies logic that it continues to survive." Another, broader and more contemplative, gestured toward a projection of Earth. "Their adaptability is the issue. They are learning, using this tank as their focus. Our superiority was supposed to overwhelm them, yet it has only made them more determined." Cracks began to form in their once unified confidence. Some argued for an escalation, a full-scale bombardment to wipe humanity off the map entirely. Others, more cautious, warned that such measures could backfire, galvanizing the humans further or damaging the resources they sought to claim. "Retreating is not an option," one commander declared, its tone sharp. "We cannot appear weak." But weakness had already begun to creep into their ranks. For the first time, the aliens faced an opponent that refused to yield, an enemy whose ingenuity and resilience turned even a perceived disadvantage into a strength. The Abrams, with its roaring cannon and unyielding presence, stood as the embodiment of that defiance. As the resistance grew bolder, so too did their victories. Each skirmish chipped away at the alien forces, proving that humanity wasn't just surviving, it was fighting back. The Abrams, once forgotten in a dusty hangar, had become a symbol of everything the aliens hadn't anticipated, a fierce, unrelenting will to endure and overcome. The air was heavy with tension as word spread of the aliens' newest weapon, a colossal war machine unlike anything seen before. Towering over buildings, its segmented limbs bristled with plasma cannons, and a shimmering energy field enveloped it, pulsing with destructive potential. Resistance scouts reported it could level entire city blocks in a single strike. The alien intent was clear: to deliver a final, crushing blow that would annihilate the resistance and break humanity's will. Captain Daniels stood at the head of a hastily assembled war council. Maps and schematics littered the table, illuminated by the flickering light of a salvaged lamp. "We've beaten them before," he began, his voice steady but urgent. "And we'll do it again. That thing might be their superweapon, but we've got something they can't calculate." He glanced toward the Abrams, parked nearby, its battered frame glowing faintly in the lamplight. The plan was audacious: a frontal assault, with the Abrams leading the charge to disable the alien weapons' shields. Smaller units would flank and strike at its vulnerable joints while the tank absorbed the brunt of the firepower. "This isn't just a battle," Daniels said, addressing the assembled soldiers and fighters. "It's our stand. If we fall here, humanity falls. But if we win, we show them what it means to fight us." When the battle began, the skies were alive with the deafening hum of alien war machines and the crackle of energy weapons. The Abrams roared to life, its engine bellowing as it surged forward at the head of the human forces. Alien drones swarmed in, but coordinated fire from the resistance brought them down in fiery arcs. The tank's main cannon fired with devastating precision, each shot a challenge to the seemingly invincible alien superweapon. The alien war machine responded with overwhelming force. Its plasma cannons unleashed torrents of energy that melted through concrete and steel. The Abrams took a direct hit, its armor scorched and dented, but it pressed on, returning fire with unrelenting ferocity. The tank's crew worked in seamless unity, their movements synchronized through sheer determination and trust. As the battle raged, the cost became clear. Resistance fighters sacrificed themselves to disable key components of the alien weapon. A team of engineers stormed the perimeter, planting explosives on critical power conduits, knowing they wouldn't return. A sniper, perched high above the battlefield, took out alien commanders one by one, holding her position until a drone swarm overwhelmed her. Through it all, the Abrams remained unstoppable. Its turret swiveled, delivering a precision shot that shattered one of the superweapon's towering legs. The machine stumbled, its energy shield flickering. The resistance seized the moment, focusing all their firepower on the weakened structure. Inside the tank, Daniels and his crew pushed the Abrams to its limits. The engine groaned, and warning lights flashed across the console, but they ignored it all, focused only on the fight. With one final shot, the Abrams pierced the alien superweapon's core, unleashing a blinding explosion that lit up the battlefield. The machine collapsed, its energy shield imploding in a cascade of light and debris. The aliens, seeing their superweapon destroyed and their forces scattered, began a hasty retreat. The skies cleared as their ships ascended, leaving behind a battlefield that was both a graveyard and a monument to human resilience. Cheers erupted from the survivors. Soldiers embraced, tears streaming down their soot-streaked faces. The Abrams, its once pristine frame battered and scorched, stood at the center of it all, a testament to humanity's determination and ingenuity. Daniels climbed onto the tank, his voice carrying across the crowd. "They thought they could crush us," he said, his voice hoarse but defiant. "They thought we'd give up. But they forgot one thing. We don't just fight to survive, we fight to win." In the aftermath, the resistance regrouped, tending to the wounded and honoring the fallen. The Abrams, now a symbol of their victory, was repaired and preserved, a reminder of what they had achieved. Across the world, scattered survivors heard of the victory and began to rebuild, their hope rekindled. As the dust settled, a quiet reflection emerged. Humanity had faced extinction and prevailed, proving they were more than the aliens had ever imagined. The battle had been won, but the war wasn't over. In the face of the stars, humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed, they were a force to be reckoned with.